Welcome to Natural History Nights. Today's episode tells the tale of Koa the sea otter. Lay back, close your eyes, and let Koa's story help you drift into a peaceful sleep. Please like and subscribe. The morning begins with the sound of moving water. Long swells pass gently beneath the kelp forest that float offshore. Koa, the sea otter, stirs still lying on his back. He has anchored himself overnight using a strip of kelp wrapped loosely around his torso, preventing him from drifting while he slept. This use of kelp as a natural tether is common among sea otters living in coastal waters with abundant marine vegetation. Koa's coat is dry. This is because he has spent time grooming it thoroughly the day before. Unlike most marine mammals, sea otters do not rely on a layer of blubber to keep warm. Instead, they have the densest fur of any animal on Earth, estimated at over 1 million hairs per square inch. This dense underfur traps pockets of air close to the skin, creating an insulating layer that helps maintain body temperature in cold water. To function properly, this air layer must be maintained through frequent grooming. Koa begins his day by rolling onto his side and twisting mid-water to reach his flanks. He uses his forepaws to rake and fluff the fur, pulling it outward and blowing into it to trap air. This is a ritual performed many times each day, not just for warmth, but also for buoyancy. An ungroomed otter would lose insulation, sink more easily, and become chilled. Once his fur is ready, Koa starts to forage. He turns belly down and propels himself through the kelp forest using his powerful hind limbs and webbed feet. His body is streamlined, and his tail, broad and slightly flattened, works like a rudder. Though small in size, adult sea otters like Koa are highly agile underwater, capable of holding their breath for up to 5 minutes while diving. His target this morning is a patch of rocky seabed where he has previously found food. Sea otters are one of the few non-human animals known to use tools. Koa carries a favorite stone, kept in a loose fold of skin under his left forearm, a small pouch that functions like a pocket. When he finds prey such as sea urchins or clams, he brings them to the surface and uses the stone to hammer them open. After a few minutes, Koa returns to the surface, carrying a sea urchin and a mussel. He lies back once again, balancing the food on his chest. Holding the mussel firmly, he pounds it with the stone until the shell cracks. Sea otters have blunt, rounded molars, adapted to crush hard-shelled prey. He consumes the mussel quickly, then turns to the sea urchin. He handles it carefully, avoiding the sharp spines, and bites into the base where the flesh is softest. Sea otters require a large daily intake of food. Because they lack blubber, their metabolism must work harder to produce body heat. An adult sea otter consumes about 1/4 of its body weight in food each day. For Koa, this means repeated foraging dives throughout daylight hours, punctuated by rest and grooming. After feeding, Koa grooms once more. He rolls in the water, scrubs his face with his paws, and blows air into his fur again. He also combs the fur using his back feet, removing any food particles or debris. This multi-step grooming process is essential to his survival and occupies a significant part of his daily routine. Later in the day, Koa explores a different area of the reef. Sea otters have home ranges that can extend several kilometers, though individual males are often territorial. Koa patrols part of a coastal region, moving through familiar channels between kelp beds. He passes over an area scattered with empty crab shells, evidence of his own previous meals. At one point, Koa detects movement below. He pauses and dives swiftly, his body forming a narrow arc as he descends. Beneath him, a red crab attempts to scuttle under a ledge. Koa grabs it and returns to the surface, quickly subduing it with his paws before eating it whole. He discards the shell, which sinks slowly to the bottom. During calm periods, Koa rests. He drifts in the shallows, often returning to thick patches of kelp. Sometimes he wraps himself in the fronds for security. His body remains upright, but relaxed paws folded loosely over his chest, eyes half closed. He is not sleeping, but conserving energy and heat. Occasionally, other otters pass through the area. Sea otters are social to some degree, with females and juveniles more often forming rafts, groups of individuals that rest together on the water. Males like Koa are more solitary, but may sometimes form rafts of only males. When another male approaches, Koa watches closely. There is no contact unless the male enters his feeding territory. In this case, Koa may vocalize, making sharp, barking sounds, or display his size to discourage intrusion. In the late afternoon, Koa returns to deeper water for one final foraging session. He dives in a rhythmic pattern, surfacing each time with a new piece of food. Octopus, scallops, and snails form part of his varied diet. He uses both hands dexterously, breaking apart shells and holding slippery prey with ease. His jaw muscles are strong, adapted for cracking and crushing. As the light fades, Koa returns to his favorite resting spot within the kelp. He spends time grooming once more, carefully cleaning and fluffing his coat. The thick layer of air must be renewed to insulate him through the colder hours of the night. With the grooming complete, he selects a broad strip of kelp and wraps it around his torso. He adjusts his position to face the open sea and slowly drifts into sleep. The ocean continues its quiet rhythm. Koa remains still, floating just beneath the moonlight, his small body buoyed by the invisible structure of millions of hairs filled with air. He will rise periodically during the night to check his surroundings and groom again, but today, at least, is done. His daily life, shaped by the sea and the demands of warmth and hunger, will begin again with the next tide. In late spring, the waters along the northern coast begin to change. There is more sunlight, the kelp forest expands, and with it, the activity within the shallow bays increases. This is the season when many sea otters seek mates. Koa, now a mature adult, begins to patrol the edges of his range more frequently. He is more vocal than usual. He dives and surfaces in a repeated pattern, scent marking and watching. Male sea otters do not form long-term bonds. Instead, they guard temporary territories in areas where females are common. Koa encounters a female several days into the season. He follows her movements closely, mirroring her dives and surfacing nearby. Courtship is brief and involves tactile interaction, a series of touches and small vocalizations. Mating takes place in the water, with the male typically grasping the female behind the head using his teeth. This behavior sometimes leaves a visible mark, though it does not cause lasting harm. After mating, the female moves away. There is no involvement from the male after this point. Gestation lasts about 6 months, but this can be paused inside the body. This allows females to give birth when environmental conditions are more favorable. Koa returns to his normal pattern of foraging, grooming, and resting. The cycle of reproduction for him is short-lived, but for the female, the next stage will require many months of care and attention. The pup is born at sea. It weighs just under 2 kilos at birth and is covered in a thick golden brown natal coat. This infant fur is not waterproof, so the mother keeps her newborn on her chest for the first few weeks. She licks and dries the fur regularly and grooms it to maintain warmth. During this time, the pup cannot dive. Its buoyant fur keeps it at the surface. The mother rarely leaves it unattended. The first sound the pup makes is a high-pitched squeal. This call is used to locate the mother and communicate its needs. It is frequent during the early weeks and gradually reduces as the pup becomes more independent. Each pup has a slightly different vocal signature, which helps the mother recognize it even in a crowded area. The mother feeds the pup exclusively on milk during the first month. Sea otter milk is high in fat, up to 30%, and allows for rapid early growth. By the second week, the pup begins to show interest in the mother's food. She introduces small bits of crab and clam, placing them on her chest for the pup to sniff and chew. This is not yet feeding, but the beginning of food recognition. Around 6 weeks of age, the pup begins to learn to dive. The mother encourages this by diving in short bursts, surfacing with food, and calling to the pup. At first, the pup sinks awkwardly, kicking in a clumsy manner. Its fur still traps too much air, making it difficult to submerge. Over time, the undercoat changes, becoming less buoyant, and the pup gains control of its body underwater. Tool use begins as observation. The mother uses stones to open shellfish. While the pup watches, she may allow the pup to handle discarded shells or offer a closed mussel to experiment with. By 3 months, many pups begin to use objects in a rudimentary way, banging shells together, mimicking their mother's actions. This behavior is not instinctual. It is learned through repetition and imitation. Grooming is also taught. Sea otter pups are shown how to blow air into their fur, scrub with their paws, and comb using their hind feet. The mother intervenes. If grooming is insufficient, she will roll the pup in the water and clean it herself to prevent heat loss. Eventually, the pup begins to take full responsibility for maintaining its own coat. Koa, though absent from the rearing process, sometimes observes pups at a distance. He does not approach, but he passes through areas where mothers and pups float together in small groups. These nursery areas are rich in kelp and food, providing a safe place for young otters to grow. Males are tolerated if they remain passive, but they are kept at a distance by protective mothers. At 4 months, the pup can dive and catch small prey. Milk is still part of the diet, but it is less frequent. The mother gradually reduces the time she spends providing food and begins to encourage independence. When the pup fails to open a clam, she does not always assist. This builds persistence and skill. Between 5 and 6 months, weaning begins. The mother no longer allows access to milk. The pup must forage, groom, and rest without support. Some individuals adapt quickly, while others struggle. Survival at this stage depends on how much the pup has learned. The average weaning age is 6 months, but this can vary. In environments with low food availability, the mother may wean earlier to conserve energy. In richer areas, she may continue caring for the pup for up to 8 months. Once weaned, the young otter moves away from the nursery zone and begins to explore a broader area. Juveniles do not yet establish territories. They travel widely, learning to navigate tides, avoid predators, and compete for food. Many join temporary groups of other young otters. These gatherings help individuals learn social cues, explore different foraging grounds, and refine tool use. Mortality is high during the first year. Pups that fail to master diving, grooming, or foraging may become hypothermic or malnourished. Inexperienced individuals are also more likely to suffer injury from sharp prey or strong currents. However, those that survive begin to resemble adults by 12 months. Their fur darkens, their diving times increase, their hunting efficiency improves. By 18 months, males begin showing early territorial behavior. They explore rocky outcrops, vocalize more often, and interact cautiously with adults. It is at this stage that Koa, years ago, began to establish his territory. Through observation, exploration, and learning from older otters, he acquired the skills that now define his daily life. The cycle continues. Each year, Koa may father new pups. He will never know them, but each young otter, floating high in the kelp, faces the same challenge, learning to be independent to survive, shaped by the demands of the ocean and the adaptations of their species. Koa lives along the rugged Alaskan coastline where the land meets the northern Pacific. The waters are cold, oxygen-rich, and stirred daily by wind and current. This coastal margin is home to one of the most productive ecosystems on Earth, the kelp forest. Fronds of giant kelp rise from the seabed to the surface, forming underwater canopies that slow waves, trap sediment, and provide shelter. It is here, among these floating forests, that sea otters like Koa spend nearly every moment of their lives. The kelp forest depends on stability. Sunlight, cool water, and a balance of herbivores are necessary for its health. Among these herbivores are sea urchins, spiny invertebrates that feed on kelp holdfasts at the base of the plant. When sea urchin numbers grow unchecked, they strip the seabed bare, creating what is known as an urchin barren. These barren zones support little life and offer no shelter to marine species. Koa plays a critical role in preventing this imbalance. As a primary predator of sea urchins, he limits their population and allows kelp to regenerate. Sea urchins have few predators. Their spines offers superior level of protection that few can breach. but koa can. His foraging behavior prevents a sea urchin population explosion and directly supports the health of the ecosystem. This relationship, where a top predator indirectly supports lower levels of the food web, is known in ecology as a trophic cascade. Koa does not know this, of course. He is following instinct, drawn to the protein-rich urchins by hunger and learnt behavior. But through this simple act, he maintains the forest that shelters him. A healthy kelp forest in turn supports other marine life. Fish, crabs, mollusks, sea stars, and countless microscopic organisms that form the base of the food chain. Otters like koa are also important to coastal bird species. Some gulls and cormorants follow otters to scavenge discarded prey. Others nest nearby, benefiting from the same ecological richness. Seals and sea lions also forage near the kelp edge, and juvenile fish take shelter among the fronds. In this web of interdependency, the presence of sea otters supports diversity. Historically, sea otters were found across the entire northern Pacific Rim, from Japan, across Russia and Alaska, and down the coasts of Canada and the United States. Estimates suggest hundreds of thousands once occupied this range. However, during the 18th and 19th centuries, the global fur trade drove them to the brink of extinction. Their dense, valuable pelts, the thickest of any mammal, were highly sought after. By the early 1900s, only small, isolated populations remained. Koa's ancestors survived because of one such remnant group, hidden in a remote bay and later protected. Legal protections, conservation programs, and reintroduction efforts have since helped sea otter numbers to increase. Today, the species is slowly reclaiming parts of its former range, though it remains absent from many areas and vulnerable to decline. Modern threats to koa are no longer from hunting. Instead, they come from changes to the ocean itself. Oil spills, chemical pollution, and plastic waste all pose risks to sea otters. Because their fur must remain clean and well aerated to insulate properly, contamination can be fatal. Even a light film of oil can collapse the fur's structure, causing hypothermia. Disease is another concern. Some pathogens affecting sea otters originate on land, carried to the ocean through rivers and urban runoff. One such parasite, Toxoplasma gondii, is transmitted via the feces of domestic cats. It has been found in the brains of stranded sea otters and is associated with disorientation and death. Climate change adds another layer of pressure. As ocean temperatures rise, kelp forests become less stable. Storms increase in frequency and intensity, tearing up holdfasts. Marine heat waves can lead to the collapse of entire kelp systems in some regions. Without kelp, koa would lose both his food source and his shelter. Conservation efforts focus on several strategies. In protected areas, sea otters are monitored by researchers using aerial surveys, tagging programs, and population modeling. Some regions restrict fishing methods that may entangle otters, such as gill nets. In places where kelp forests are declining, divers are deployed to remove excess urchins by hand, giving kelp a chance to recover. Public education has also been key. In areas where otters coexist with human activity, Signs remind boaters to keep their distance. Wildlife laws prohibit feeding or approaching otters, helping them retain natural behavior and avoid habituation. These small actions reduce stress and support healthy populations. Koa, for now, benefits from the protection of a marine reserve. The coastline where he lives is part of a designated conservation area. Here, no commercial fishing is allowed, and boat traffic is minimal. Monitoring programs have recorded an increase in kelp coverage, and species diversity is high. It is a good place to be an otter, but his territory lies close to the edge of this reserve. During seasonal movements, Koa occasionally drifts beyond the protected zone. Here, the water is murkier. There are fewer urchins, and plastic fragments sometimes float at the surface. He adjusts, diving deeper or moving back towards his usual ground. His survival still depends on factors beyond his control. Despite the challenges, the sea otter is considered a conservation success story. From near extinction, populations in some regions have rebounded. California, Alaska, British Columbia, and parts of Washington now host stable or growing groups. However, full recovery will take time and continued effort. Researchers continue to study sea otters to understand how they adapt to shifting ecosystems. Satellite tracking, genetic studies, and long-term observation all help conservationists plan for the future. Koa is one of many otters that have been identified and recorded during these surveys, not tagged or interfered with, but counted from a distance. His presence, behavior, and range help build a picture of the health of his population. In the broader context of marine conservation, sea otters represent more than a single species. They are a keystone, a species whose impact is greater than its numbers. Their return brings balance, making ecosystems more resilient. Where sea otters recover, kelp forests thrive. And where kelp forests thrive, entire food webs grow stronger. As the sun sets over the Pacific, Koa floats once again in his usual place. The kelp wraps around him as he grooms, then drifts. Above him, seabirds pass low over the water. Beneath him, the reef is alive with invertebrates and juvenile fish. It is a complex system, quietly continuing, shaped in part by his presence. There is still work to be done, but for now, in this corner of the ocean, one otter keeps the balance, and the forest remains. Thank you for joining me tonight on Natural History Nights. For the rest of the hour, enjoy the calming sounds of nature. Wherever you are, I hope the quiet rhythms of the natural world bring you a little peace as you drift off to sleep. So from both of us, Koa and me, rest well, sleep deeply, and until next time, good night.